Tri-Cities Community TV presents edited coverage of the public input session at Port Moody City Council from July 23, 2024. Many of those who made presentations to Council expressed concerns about two separate housing developments that had been on the books for a number of years now. This would seem to indicate that the community is still divided on how the city should deal with the lack of housing that has been identified by the provincial government.
Good evening. We're going to get started with the meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. We start off in a good way with the territorial land acknowledgement. The City of Port Moody carries out our business on the ancestral and unceded homelands of the Coquitlam, Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, Squamish, Katzie, Kwantlen, Kikate, and Stolo peoples, and extends appreciation for the opportunity to work on this territory. The next item is adoption of the agenda. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We'll now move into public input. As a reminder to members of the public, while we encourage civic engagement and welcome your participation in the public portion of our meeting, there are expectations regarding appropriate conduct and decorum at council meetings. We ask all members of the public to ensure that matters raised with council are constructively focused on issues and not individuals, and that any engagement with or about city staff is addressed in a manner that is consistent with these expectations so that we can all engage in this space in a manner that is respectful and constructive and abides by the city's respectful workplace policy. So we have two forms of public input. One is verbal and one is written. And I have two lists. And if you haven't had an opportunity to put your name on a list, I will, then you can still do that. There's one at the back. I see someone is doing that right now. But I have two lists, which I'll start with. And just for your information, you have 2 minutes. And when you come to the podium, please just state your name and city of residence for the record. So the first speaker is going to be David Unglis, followed by Ken Kuhn and Tracy Schaefer. And before we get started, Mr. Unglis, is that me? I don't know.
It might not be.
Just hang on one sec, Dave.
Nope, it's not you.
It's not me. Before we get started, just a reminder, we have closed the public hearing for item 7.3, which is on the consent agenda. So we will not be allowing anybody to provide input on that one item. Until and unless it receives adoption at this point, because it's finished its public hearing. With that, Mr. Unglis, I will ask you to state your name and city of residence for the record.
My name is David Unglis, and I live at 515 San Remo Drive. And first thing I'd like to say is Ribfest was awesome. And it just made, thanks to the Rotary Club for making Port Moody taste good, sound good, and smell good. So, and we really have a special city. But I'm here to speak about the TOD, the Transit-Oriented Development Proposal. Although it's an improvement over the initial presentation earlier this year, and I get it. Density makes sense near transit. But my concern is about rezoning this land out of M1 to mainly residential towers. First of all, we are not forced to do this. The new provincial law recognizes the value that commercial and industrial businesses bring to the community. They have so much potential to be the economic engine to this city. Instead, we need a development that includes housing and ensures high-paid, high-quality jobs. We should maximize the desirability of Port Moody. Why are we thinking of using Skytrain to take workers away, rather than using it to bring the workforce in? Why are we thinking about mostly one-bedroom boxes? Why don't we think about outside the box? My biggest fear is that this proposal will narrow the tax base instead of widening it. I believe we need a profound change in vision. A narrow tax base with more demand on infrastructure from new residents on a site currently zoned M1 will condemn us to more tax increases.
Thank you, Mr. Unglis. Your time is up. Thanks for that. The next speaker is Mr. Ken Kuhn, followed by Tracy Schaefer and Malcolm Whitford. Welcome, Mr. Kuhn. Please state your name and city of residence for the record.
Ken Kuhn, Treetops, in Port Moody. I'm here speaking as the Executive Director of the Tri-City Senior Action Society. Do you know that in the Tri-Cities, there are just under 40,000 people over 65? There are only 32,000 people going to school in the whole school district. So there's more people over 65 than there are people going to school. But we cater to the people going to school. And I'm not against that. I'm an ex-school teacher. But let's put some services in place. Be proactive for those over 65. There are 94,000 people over 50 in the Tri-Cities. That's 38%. And when I talk to different councils, we're not being proactive putting things in place for seniors, including seniors housing, age-friendly items, etc. You know, the stats for Port Moody are very similar. So we go across the boundaries. You know, we use the swimming pools in Coquitlam and libraries, etc. So I'm asking that our city council think ahead, be proactive, and put seniors housing and age-friendly items on the books. And whether you're pushing a baby carriage for someone who's 8 months old, or if you're 80 years old with a cane, you need things like benches, washrooms, lighting, safe places to walk in parks and stuff like that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next person is Tracy Schaefer, followed by Malcolm Whiteford and Kathleen Keeley. Good evening, Tracy. Please just state your name and city of residence for the record.
My name is Tracy Schaefer and Port Moody.
Good evening. I just want to voice my support for item 11.4, which is the application for Spring Street. But as usual, I have questions. Now, I took part in the roundtable discussion with the developer, and we looked at the public spaces around the new buildings and how they would benefit the community. And I was really impressed with how flexible the developers were and how they seemed open to our concerns, and they were able to open up dialogues, and I really was interested in their ideas of reducing the carbon footprint even for the public spaces outside. I thought that was amazing. Well, we all understand what's going on here. We are mandated by the province to develop the area. So being able to discuss things with developers is essential, and I found that they were open to discussion. So if you were to move this forward, I think the discussions would be open and clear, and I think that's a benefit. But I have questions, and they stem from the artist spaces and the studios in the area. The roundtable I participated in did not focus on the inside but the outside, but I would like to turn some attention to the inside of these buildings and how we use them. We are losing key spaces which now house a large number of the artist studios in our city, essentially displacing dozens of established artists in our community. We are the city of the arts, and we cannot function without artists. So as we grow, we need to make sure that we keep these people who are the pillars of our culture in mind. So I ask you to allow this application to move forward, but with the caveat that we leave a space for artists and that the artists be the focal point of some of the discussions moving forward, because Port Moody just doesn't function without the artists which feed us. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now ask Malcolm Whiteford, followed by Kathleen Creeley, and then I'll go to someone who's online, Eric Hedeker. Please just state your name and city of residence for the record.
Hello, Malcolm Whiteford, Port Moody.
Welcome.
I've got a couple points and some questions. I'll ask questions you can answer later sometime. But It's about 11.5, the Kyle Park Senior Living Centre. First of all, we went through this, I'm not sure how many months ago, where they proposed, I think it was a 20-story building with a tower and a 5-story smaller section. I think we went through 2 readings, and council had suggested that they come back with a new proposal, maximum 6 stories, since this is single-family area residence in the old part of Moody Centre. So I'm a little confused. They've come back again with a proposal for 12 stories. Maybe they weren't listening to you, or I'm not sure what they're trying to do here. They've also switched it, so the tower before was on the Kyle Park side. Now they've switched the tower, so it's on the Mary Street side. Before, I think in their proposal, they're saying that the reason they did that is because the tower would not, or the tower, they didn't want to shade Kyle Park. I've lived here for over 30 years. I walk my dog there, I take my kids there. Kyle Park is always shaded. So that's not the reason. The reason is, I'm actually, I can't tell you what the reason is, but now that they've put the tower on this side, they're going to block everyone's view on Gatensbury Road, about 60 residences. The blocks below are going to be shaded now. Before, their footprint would have shaded the empty spot across from the Arts Centre and Kyle Park. So if they go and build anything over 8 stories, it's going to basically block the sunlight for a lot of houses down around that area. And it's still, Moody Centre is still a single-family residence zone. With the amendments with the government and stuff, they are suggesting 6 to 8. And as the council, last time we discussed this, you suggested they do 6 stories. So I find it a little confusing that they're coming back with 12. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Kathleen Creeley, followed by Eric Hedeker, and then we'll go to Juan Carlos Philippe. Please state your name and city of residence for the record.
I'm Kathleen Kiley, and I'm from Port Moody.
Sorry for getting it wrong.
Oh, sorry. That happens all the time. My concern is the traffic and the congestion that the proposed towers will create around Moody Centre. And I know everyone is trying to get everyone to take transit, and in a perfect world, that would be wonderful, but that's not the reality. I'm 61 years old, and I do multiple sports, and dragging a kayak on a bus isn't really feasible, nor is dragging skis up to Cyprus feasible. So in the real world, transit isn't always the answer. I do frequently take transit, going downtown, etc. But with all the proposed congestion that the high towers are going to create, I'm just wondering what is your proposed plan for all the traffic that will ensue. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I please ask that the audience not clap? Thank you. So we will go to Mr. because it extends the period of time that we have allotted. So it's not appropriate. This is a business meeting. The members of the audience are here to provide input to council, which is great, but we want to keep the meeting going. So thank you. We'll go to Eric Hedeker, please, followed by Juan Carlos Philippe, and then Naomi Brunmeyer. Mr. Hedeker, you have the floor. Please state your name and city of residence for the record. Oh, wait. We can't hear him. Oh.
Hello, my name is Eric Hedeker, City of Port Moody. Sadly, more than a dozen municipalities across our province are being evacuated today because of changing climate. Locally, we're experiencing a longer and hotter and drier July than Port Moody has ever seen, directly after one of the driest winters we've ever had. Drought is real. And from our studies, we know 2 clear facts. 1, transportation of both people and goods make up more than half of Port Moody's direct emissions because of our inefficient suburban sprawl city design. 2, densification around our transit hubs massively reduces the total carbon footprint of every person in those homes and the homes around them. Today, some of Council is bound to claim that we're doing too much to slow climate change. They'll erroneously stress over parks, space, or shade. Meanwhile, almost 1 million hectares of BC forest has burned this year alone. They'll warn that Port Moody's culture and tax base is growing too fast. You hold the power today of deciding the carbon footprint of thousands of future residents of Metro Vancouver. Let's be clear. The question before you is not when, how fast, or if. The question truly before you today is where. Where should we house Metro Vancouver's growing population? Should it be in walkable distance to transit and daily needs? Should it sprawl further into the surrounding hillsides, enshrining a dependence on personal vehicles and delivery vans? Please say yes to tall buildings full of future low-carbon families. Move forward with the Bosa Foods grocery store. Get started on the long-awaited TOD and make it bigger. Our city has stagnated in population for over a decade because of nearsighted delay tactics. We are falling behind as Metro Vancouver blossoms. The TOD has sun-bleached development proposal signs up from half a decade ago, yet still the lot sits fallow without housing, without parks, and without vibrancy of walkable low-carbon housing for families. Please do your part to uphold the Climate Action Plan by moving forward with this OCP amendment. We don't have infinite time to wait for a utopia.
Thank you, Mr. Hedeker. Your time is up. Thank you. We will now go to thank you, Mr. Hedeker, Juan Carlos Felipe, and followed by Naomi Brunmeyer. Please state your name and city of residence for the record. Yeah? Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to follow up on your comments on not clapping, because I'm looking in our procedures and I don't see that anywhere.
Well, I'm asking that not happen.
But if people want to clap,
well, it's distracting, and we're trying to run a meeting. So
thank
you.
I have to say,
Councillor. Thank you, Mr. Philippe. You have the floor.
Hi, my name is Juan Carlos Philippe, and I'm resident of Port Moody, Sutter I'm concerned about these massive projects that are on the table, particularly the heights. I don't understand why is the need to go to up to 38-story buildings. In my mind, I don't think the geography of Port Moody is proper for this type of projects. We don't have the current infrastructure. There are no roads. There is need to be more urban planning, and what are the plans for the future? This is one of the questions, and how this is going to be impacting all the livelihood of the residents of Port Moody. Also, I've heard in past meetings that we are almost reaching the goal to accomplish the numbers that the government is requiring. So I don't understand why is the need to have these wall towers where Port Moody is meant to be more sustainable growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I please have Naomi Brunmeyer, please? Please just state your name and city of residence for the record. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Naomi Brunnemeyer, and my city of residence is Vancouver. I do come to you in my role as the Director of Regional Development for the Lower Mainland at BC Housing. Port Moody is in my portfolio. Thank you very much for hosting this public discourse. I'm here to speak on behalf of 11.4, the rezoning and OCP amendment for the Moody Centre project by BD Living. I'm here to speak in support of it. I know it's not easy for mayor and council to make these decisions. You're balancing community needs, wants, neighborhood concerns, provincial housing targets, and trying to maintain a little bit of the culture and the class of which is Port Moody. So this discourse is very important, and the reason why I'm here today is that I believe that this project actually helps you balance those needs. I believe that it creates a livable and vibrant community. It exudes all of the characteristics that BC Housing supports around transit-oriented development, density where it should be, livable and walkable communities. But what's really unique about this project is it also delivers affordable housing. And the developer was thoughtful enough to upfront and be proactive, find out what funding sources were available, and make sure what they were pitching was something that might actually have support at a provincial level and have funding attached to it. And so they came and talked to BC Housing first before coming here and drum up support for a project for women and children at this location. So that's the proposal that BC Housing has received from BD that we're in support of. Your community is in need of housing for vulnerable women and children, and this proposal will be able to support that. There's a commitment from BC Housing and an allocation for capital funding and operating for this project. The operator hasn't been selected yet. That's going to happen in September. And so we're here to say that this project will help you meet your supportive housing targets at a provincial level.
Thank you. Okay, that's the end of our speakers list that I have. If there's anybody else that wishes to speak to council, please, the mic is available. Please come down, and you have 2 minutes. I'll call a second time. Oh, count. Okay. Hello there. Please state your name and city of residence for the record.
Hi, Laura Dick, Port Moody. I have written in, and my submission is part of the on-table, but I really thought I'd come and speak about a couple of things. So first of all, my first 2 points, I really want to reiterate them in person, and that was to really thank council for all of the work that you have done collectively over the past year to really get this city focused and moving, engaging, listening to people, supporting residents. You've done a fantastic job. Secondly, staff, same thing. You've done an incredible job over a year with lots of constraints, lots of shortages, lots of challenges, and still you're all here, you're all working, and you're all really supporting us as residents. So I wanted to make those 2 points. I do want to talk about the TOD. I'm struck that it is for BD Living. I'm struck that we're at first reading 6 years. 6 years into this, and we are at first reading. So I have reiterated those things that I really, really like and appreciate. Women's transition housing, we need it. We all need it. Certainly, most of you on the front of this table need it. Know that we need it. Not that you need it. Supportive housing, First Nations engagement, the active living space that's being proposed and acted on, that's interactive and flexible, is really fantastic. I agree with Ms. Schaefer. I was part of that conversation as well, those workshops, and between the first workshop and the second workshop, you could really see that they are listening to that conversation and making adjustments as is. I got 3 seconds left, so let's just get...
Thank you. All right. I'll open it up again. Call the first time. Is there anybody who would like to speak to council? Hi, just state your name and city of residence for the record, please.
Yeah, Lori Ablett in Port Moody. My concern is, yes, we all know we need more housing. We need that. I think, as the last speaker said, it should be indicative to you. She made a good point. It's been 6 years, and you're at first reading. The reason why is the community thinks this is too much, too fast. You're going too fast. At some point, communities get saturated, and once that saturation point reaches and it keeps cramming development down our throats, it becomes less livable of a city. We are landlocked in. We can only do so much. And my understanding is with the rezoning with the provinces, the way that what they've done now basically made every home, there is no such thing as single-family housing now. It's all multi-family. That, I feel we can meet our targets that way through infill housing, co-ops, townhouses. These are huge, huge impositions on our landscape, and the reason that you're 6 years later at first reading is the community doesn't want it. It's too fast. It's not enough infrastructure to support the people that you're wanting to improve upon. We've gone negative growth because we can't, it's not because of lack of housing. There's lots of condos here. They're not all full. It's too much, too fast. I'm asking council to slow down. The fact that just 6 years later is because the community is concerned. You serve the community. That's us. And we are saying enough, like you're going too fast. Put in the roads, put in the infrastructure, then we can talk. But the council has a reputation for being very development friendly, not so much community friendly. I'd say let's turn the focus back on what the community wants, and let's slow down a bit till we've got some infrastructure in place to support what you're trying to cram down our throats. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak to council? I'll call a second time. Is there anybody else that would like to address council? Third and final time. Is there anybody else who would like to speak to council? Are you coming down? Okay. Please state your name and city of residence for the record.
Port Moody, more specifically Moody Centre, where I've lived for over 25 years. First item, 11.5. It's an interesting project, but it's being proposed for the wrong area, so I am opposed to that. I really want to speak on item 11.4. The current height restriction in the TOD is 26 stories, but this council recently introduced a new planning framework that permits building applications up to 40 stories. That's actually double the height of the 20 stories being imposed by the government's new legislation. And that legislation excludes industrial properties. Preserving industrial land is critical to diversifying our tax base and preventing our taxes from continuing to rise due to the hidden costs of overdevelopment. This application proposes to do away with the existing light industrial zoning to allow for 3 residential towers of up to 38 stories. I am opposed to this application. I cannot stress that enough. The proposed condos will be unaffordable and, according to the Housing Needs Report, will not meet the community's needs. This project will also add over 1,200 parking spaces to an already congested area. And don't tell me everyone will be taking transit, because if that were true, you wouldn't need to build 1,200 new parking spaces. I'll close by reminding you that extensive public consultation findings were compiled by staff, which proves that the majority of residents are opposed to this type of density in the TOD. This included a survey that went out to every home in the city. Since action speaks louder than words, your votes on this item tonight will tell us exactly who you represent. Nice smirk. Do you represent Port Moody residents or Port Moody developers? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call for the next person to come up, please. I'm guessing that this is how it's going to go. So, I see somebody coming down. So I will please state your name and city of residence for the record.
John Grasty, Port Moody. Thank you, Mayor. I'm here to speak in favor of item 11.4. And what concerns me most about this conversation, which has been going on a lot longer than the 6 years, because there was all sorts of consultation prior to that, is that there's just so much information. I was reading some of the on-table correspondence where someone thinks there's 40 towers going up. And I heard a couple of speakers say, I don't understand. And this has concerned me for a long time, and I remember right into the previous mayor suggesting that we have some information sessions, starting with how Metro works, how the statement, the growth statement, sets the pace, and our contribution to it, and what is within the control of City Council. There are people that are on social media just crucifying this council for things that are way out of their control, and they do not know. And there's I think one speaker said twice, I don't understand. He surely doesn't, because we need some information sessions on how the OCP works and how the OCP can be changed. People do not understand some basic planning. I was sat through the last OCP process, and it was very apparent then, which is why I requested that from the previous council. So I would highly recommend that we get some instructive information to these people, and then they might have a different view. Thank you.
Thank you. I will ask again, is there anybody that would like to speak to council? I'll call a second time. Is there anybody that would like to speak to council? Oh, someone's coming down. Welcome. Pardon? Okay. Oh, sorry. Please state your name and city of residence for the record.
Mitch Williams, Port Moody. I'll keep this short. I'm speaking about, forget the number, but the project by the Kyle Centre. Usually I come here and speak in favor of most developments, but that one, I think you've probably heard from other people. It seems to have come out of a lack of planning over the years, lack of a vision for the neighborhood. I want to see senior housing. I think we need it. I'm not sure this format or demographic that they're looking for financially is what we really need in Moody Centre. And I just hope we can get on with an OCP process and provide a guideline and a vision for the neighborhood as opposed to a single property. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody that would like to speak to council? I'll call a second time. Is there anybody that would like to speak to council? I'll call a third and final time. Is there anybody that would like to speak to council for the first time? Okay. Come on up.
All right, this is just kind of impromptu here. I'm just coming up. Steve Milani, Port Moody. Sorry.
Thank you.
I'm just coming up because a neighbor of mine who lives on St. George, on the 2300 block of St. George, she called me and she said she was too shy to come in and speak in front of council.
Okay.
And she's opposed to 11.5 for a multitude of reasons. I'm not her, so I don't really want to get into too many details. She just told me she's very sad to see this happening in her residential neighborhood. I told her it's not happening yet, and I try to make her feel better. But I told her I'd just come up, and she sent me a message now, so I said I'd just come up and say a few words. So on behalf of her, she's opposed to that. So
thank you. All right. I'll call. Is there anybody that would like to speak to council? Second time. I'll call a third time. Seeing none, public input is closed. Sorry?
There's one more at the end.
What?
She's.
Oh, I didn't see you.
Council will have to
Okay. The clerk is informing me we need to extend public input, so I will just ask for a motion to extend public input, please. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Dilworth, you're in favor? All right. So please state your name and city of residence for the record. You'll be our last speaker.
Thank you. I am Nishka Valdez. I live in Port Moody for the last 16 years. I just want to mention that since I've been walking with the Expand Rocky Point Park, I listened to a lot of people speaking, and it's really hard to hear about all the concerns of people living close to Rocky Point and looking up and seeing all the towers. Yes, we need housing, and it has been said over again that we are close to our targets. I want people to have housing. I wrote in about our seniors' housing luxury. I've been working with seniors for 10 years, and towers are scary for them. They don't have the same, they can't get around the same as everyone else. There's people that have all these towers going up. They're boxes. They're small. They're really expensive for everyone to even live in them and have a family. I've talked to young women that have kids, and they don't know where they're going to be living because they're getting displaced from older buildings that we have here, and then they have to downsize from a 2-bedroom to a 1-bedroom of 4 people. We all know this is going on, and a wall of towers. There's no one, I don't think, online. I am online, as we all know, and there's no one saying there's 40 towers. But there is a lot of towers for a small Port Moody that has 2 roads in and out, and everyone around us is going through us. So then we have our neighbors in South Anmore going to maybe create another huge housing. Where are all these people going to go?
Sorry. Thank you for that. All right. Councillor Lebecki.
Thank you. It's actually 49 towers. There are 49 towers either planned, approved, or currently built in Port Moody. If you include the 9 in Coronation Park right next door, it's 58. So no one has misinformation. Actually, that is 100% correct.
Councillor, are you speaking to that?
I'm going to speak to that. So
Thank you.
this item, it was on consent, of course, which means we have to pull the item to discuss it like it's a formality, but adoption of a rezoning bylaw of this magnitude and impact of our community should never be on consent. But perhaps it's a fitting conclusion to the story of Coronation Park. From the beginning, and there remain so many issues with this development, I've listed them several times over the years, first as a resident and then as a councillor. It's going to create traffic chaos beyond what I think people can likely comprehend in a development being championed as transit-oriented, where we are clear-cutting every single beautiful mature tree you see on that site to make way for 3,000 parking spaces underneath where those trees once stood. 10,000 more people will be on that corner, our busiest corner already between our site and Coquitlam's approved development, with no plans for how to handle this growth except for a reduction of quality of life in Port Moody. That's the harsh reality. Traffic gridlock with no plans to deal with it. On top of these obvious issues, we are approving a luxury development, majority 1-bedroom and studio high-rises in the midst of a housing affordability crisis where average everyday people can no longer find affordable housing that meets their needs. Coronation Park is huge. It's 2,600 units. That's 50% more dense than we ever planned for in our OCP. And with all of that, all the impacts and the costs and the level of density that we're taking on, what did we get? What did we agree to? 0 units of affordable housing during an affordability crisis. As of today, as of adoption of this rezoning, if it occurs, which I imagine it will, 0. The irony is not lost on me. We're approving this on the same day the mayor's office released a statement asking the province to do more on homelessness. There were even calls to swap parking that would help our traffic for affordable housing that we desperately need, and we wouldn't even consider it. But now, the question about how we're going to get affordable housing, we have a letter of intent that has somehow been signed with the developer to add even more luxury condos in the future without any engagement with our community that they want more density, without even the direction of council as far as I know. So I have many questions about that for the future. But these are not the only questions that remain. Do you remember when residents came and stood there at that mic over concerns when 4 members of a council met up with this developer outside of a council meeting? Councillors called it a tour, and residents said they felt the rules had been broken after they reviewed what was discussed at that gathering. I did not hear any accusations of ill intent of any council member. That was never the issue. What I heard was enough legitimate questions being raised that deserved a proper response. The community deserved that respect, not a post by the mayor's office that said, "It's all good, trust us." But a neutral third-party investigation released to the public to answer their concerns. Those calls were again ignored, like other things, and these concerns have not been resolved. I have been raising issues and calling for change that matters to so many people in our community, like we've heard tonight. But the reality is this agenda that we're seeing in the middle of summer reflects a bigger pattern of what is happening in our city. We're on a destructive path to overbuilding and normalizing disregard for the perspectives of the majority of our residents. Being elected to Port Moody City Council does not give you the right to ignore our residents. I believe in the power of people, and I believe the story of Coronation Park serves as a cautionary tale in this community that will not be forgotten, and I am not supporting adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mover and second? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Lebecki is opposed.